Nostalgia when you're young feels like wishing you could go back. Nostalgia when you're older feels like something closer to grief. Same emotion, same basic mechanism, but it lands differently, carries more weight, and sometimes arrives without warning for moments you didn't even know you were storing. The reason nostalgia changes as you age is directly connected to something we've talked about before, the way your brain measures and remembers time. Nostalgia is a bittersweet emotional state triggered by memories of the past, typically autobiographical memories associated with positive emotion, though almost always with a layer of loss attached, because the past is, by definition, inaccessible. It's one of the most universal human experiences documented across cultures and throughout history. What's less commonly understood is that nostalgia isn't primarily about the past itself. It's about identity. Studies consistently find that nostalgia serves a psychological function. It reconnects you to your sense of continuous self, the narrative that links who you are now to who you were then. When that continuity feels threatened by change, stress, or uncertainty, nostalgia often increases as a kind of self-stabilization mechanism. When you're young, nostalgia typically attaches to recent memories. Last year, a few years ago. The gap between then and now is short. The person you remember being isn't radically different from the person you are. The things you miss are usually still partly available. You could, in theory, revisit the place, see the people, approximate the feeling. This makes young nostalgia feel more like longing with a realistic resolution. Something was good. It ended. Maybe it could happen again. The emotion has a forward component. It's partly motivating. As you age, the gap between the remembered past and the present self grows. The person you miss being is increasingly unlike the person you are. The context of those memories, childhood home, school friendships, a younger body, people who have since died, are genuinely irretrievable, not just temporarily unavailable. This changes the emotional quality of nostalgia fundamentally. It becomes tinged with something closer to permanent loss, because the objects of the nostalgia actually are permanently lost. And because of the time perception shift we've discussed before, where years feel shorter as novelty decreases, older adults are also dealing with an accelerating sense that what's left is compressed and fast-moving, while what's gone was long and slow and full. There's a well-documented phenomenon in memory research called the reminiscence bump. When people are asked to recall memories from across their lives, they disproportionately recall events from the period between about 10 and 30 years old. This period, adolescence and early adulthood, is when most people experience the most firsts. First love, first real friendships, first independent choices, first sense of their own identity forming. These firsts are encoded more richly than later experiences precisely because they were novel, and they become the disproportionate anchors of nostalgia in later life, which is why a song from adolescence can hit harder than a song from last year, even if you heard the recent one more often. The older memories are simply stored at a depth the newer ones rarely reach. So nostalgia changes as you age, not because you've become more sentimental, and not because the past was actually better. It changes because the gap between then and now grows. The memories from that gap were encoded with unusual richness, and the retrieval pathway leads you back to a version of yourself that exists only in memory. The grief in older nostalgia is real. What you're mourning isn't just the past. It's the version of you that lived in it. If you want to learn more about this topic, feel free to subscribe.